Welcome to Signs of Life, exploring survival of consciousness. Brought to you by Forever Family Foundation. On the web at foreverfamilyfoundation.org.
I call your name. The echo is haunting. The echo is always the same. I call your name. The echo is haunting. An echo can never be changed. So I call your name. Your name.
And welcome to the gathering on Signs of Life Radio. You're here with Tom and Melissa Gould. I'm Bob Ginsberg. We are your hosts for this evening. And as you know, we welcome your calls to join us and in the discussion. You can tell us about something that happened to you or ask a question, and we'll kick it around. The number here, if you want to call, and we'd love to hear from you, is 888-627-6008. And as you know, this is the show that we do where we address your questions. Some of you have emailed questions in before the show, so we'll read those and feel free to call at any time. Well, Tom and Melissa, it's been a while.
Hey, Bob, it's great to see you tonight.
Trust you're feeling well.
Yes.
Doing well so far, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, you know, I think before we get started, I think I had posted this, and you probably saw it, Melissa, but, you know, some of the comedians are great, comedians. We tend to think that they're just, funny people, but there's not any real depth to them. And as you well know, some of our great mediums are really deep thinkers. And I saw this quote about grief from Jim Carrey, of all people. And, I'll just read it quickly. He said, "Grief is not just an emotion. It's an unraveling, a space where something once lived but is now gone. It carves through you, leaving a hollow ache where love once resided. In the beginning, it feels unbearable, like a wound that will never close. But over time, the raw edges begin to mend. The pain softens, but the imprint remains, a quiet reminder of what once was. The truth is, you never truly move on. You move with it. The love you had does not disappear, it transforms. It lingers in the echoes of laughter and the warmth of old memories, and the silent moments where you still reach for what is no longer there. And that's okay. Grief is not a burden to be hidden. It is not a weakness to be ashamed of. It is the deepest proof that love existed, that something beautiful once touched your life. So let yourself feel it. Let yourself mourn. Let yourself remember. There is no timeline, no right way to grieve. Some days will be heavy and some will feel lighter. Some moments will bring unexpected waves of sadness, while others will fill you with gratitude for the love you were lucky enough to experience. Honor your grief, for it is sacred. It is a testament to the depth of your heart. And in time, through the pain, you will find healing, not because you have forgotten, but because you have learned how to carry both love and loss together."
Oh, how
I thought that was great, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
That really says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I have a newfound deep respect for Jim Carrey after that.
Yeah, it's pretty
All right,
perfect.
so well, before we get to the questions that people sent in, let's go to a caller. We have Lisa from New Jersey. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, good evening. How is everybody?
Good. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you. I have a question. I can get messages from people who passed about my grandfather. He passed a long time ago, and I never feel him around. I never get him around. There's nothing, never ever comes. So my question is, there's endless possibilities, I'm sure, to this question, but where is it that they can go, or, can they be so busy doing other things that they don't connect to the physical again? Just wondering about the possibilities of that.
Yeah, well, I know you're worried about that. Something could have happened to him on the other side, and I don't think there's anything to worry about. But yeah, you're right. There are so many different possibilities. I mean, we think that there are endless opportunities, where he is, and we also believe that the soul progresses on the other side and moves to higher and higher, frequencies, where it becomes more difficult, to communicate with those of us in the dense physical existence. So, yeah, I mean, it could be that he's more enlightened, so to speak, so it's hard to get through. Maybe he feels that, you're doing well and handling things, and he knows that you'll see him again. So it really isn't that need. But I think it's all good there. So I don't think there's anything that he's done wrong or you've done wrong. It just, was not happening at the moment. Maybe Tom and Melissa can elaborate.
Yeah, he
was a very old soul.
Yes.
He probably has evolved then.
Yeah, the evolution of the soul is definitely a factor here. Also, recall that once you leave this plane and you are in the afterlife, if you will, there is no time or space, which means that you can go to any place that you want, whether it be on Earth or in the cosmos. You can also go to any time you want. If you wanted to see what it was like when you were in kindergarten, you can go to that spot. So there are multiple things that can keep one busy in the other side. And then the other thing to note as well is that you're now an eternal being. I mean, you're always an eternal being, but right now you feel yourself as this physical form, which is finite. And you're in this physical form for perhaps 100 years, give or take, depending on your situation. And that 100 years in the scope of eternity is just a blip. So you want to see him often, but he visits you or visited you once, and for him, it's just another minute, and you'll be with him. So he doesn't feel that you need to have his constant presence. And as Bob mentioned, there's also more work to be done for you on the other side in learning and growing and that. And we have very little knowledge or evidence of what actually transpires, other than there are things to be done when you get there, and that can occupy their time.
I don't really have much more to add to that, Lisa. I think Tom and Bob have expressed it the way we have heard and explored from the mediums, and I do know often that we look for a specific sign or indication about our loved one, and it may not be what they're trying to show us. So as long as you're open and sharing stories about your grandfather, just know that he is around and knows and feels your love for him always.
Well, thanks for calling, Lisa.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, and I hope you hear from your grandfather. Take care. Bye-bye. I have a question that was emailed. It said, why does the spirit say they didn't commit suicide? She wants to discuss the spirit's perception of the definition of suicide compared to the earthly definition and perception.
Wow.
I don't know if I've heard.
I don't know if there is a difference necessarily. Other than that people will come through on a death that has been ruled a suicide to say, no, I didn't do that. In fact, you get that a lot with the drug overdoses, that people think that, oh, geez, he was depressed and he went up and he took an overdose of drugs and off he went, and they called it a suicide. But a lot of times drug overdoses are just accidents. And, or, your car runs into a tree and they go, oh, he must have, or into a wall or something. And you say, well, he must have driven into the wall to commit suicide. But you don't know. You don't know if you had a mini stroke or a heart attack or something. Well, I guess they can determine that in an autopsy, but you don't know what's happening right before a death happens, and often humans get it wrong and they rule it as suicide when it's not. And a spirit will come through and say, no, I did not commit suicide. It was my time and I was taken. But as far as a different definition of what is suicide to one side or the other, I'm not familiar with that at all.
I think also the current terminology is not to actually say commit suicide, take one's own life. Different terminology is often used these days, but we all know what we're talking about when it's expressed that way.
Yeah, I also think that, many people here, we talk about suicide, they don't necessarily recognize that most suicides are the result of an illness. And, we attach this stigma to it, whereas on the other side, there is no stigma, and physical life is physical life, just one small part in that big continuum. So I don't think that they really care how somebody, how they passed or how everybody there passed. It's just that they're in the next phase, of their life. And also on the other side, whereas here it takes a tremendous toll on the families. Over there, I imagine it's quite different. There's just help and the healing, and advancement. So, there must be a great difference between here and there.
I'd like to highlight that a little bit because one of my best friends, or longest friends, had a daughter who suffered from postpartum depression, and she hung herself. And everybody will, well, she committed suicide. But what you said earlier means a lot. She was not a suicidal person. She was a lovely person, had a great life, had a child, all of that sort of thing. So it was not that she wanted to kill herself. She was in that an illness. Her mind felt that was her solution, and that's what took her. And yes, she actually put the rope up and did the whole thing herself. But you could say that was an illness, not a conscious act in a lot of ways.
She felt desperate and saw no.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, depression, is an illness. I think we get it wrong. The conscious, and today, look, you and I both know from running all these retreats. I mean, it's like epidemic like, especially among young people. Taking their own lives, and I mean, there's a lot of things that go on today that didn't go on then. The bullying and stigma and pressure and disillusionment and wars all over the place. It's easy for people to fall into a state of mind where they think everything is hopeless. So it's but the good news is that on the other side, there isn't a place that people who take their own lives go. We go to the same place. We're there and we move on.
And there's help and compassion from those on the other side to help them.
Right. We have a question. I have been told that families stay together in the afterlife. Is this true? And if so, what about dysfunctional families where a member might not ever want to see their family again?
Well, you know the old expression that, you know, you've got your family and then your friends are the family that you choose. I think what we're dealing with here is on the other side, I've heard that there are soul groups. So you will be attracted to the souls that have the same interests. Like musicians will go and hang with musicians, and scientists will hang with scientists, and that. So I think that that's more the way. And when you're talking about family, you'll go where the love is. So if you had a great deal of love for people in your family, you'll definitely see them, and you will interact with them. So I think it's more in that way, that would be the people that you loved are part of your love group, and you will be grouped with them. The other thing to remember is that, and we hear it many, many times in readings, when you say dysfunctional family, if there was an abusive member of the family or something like that nobody liked, often they're the ones who will come to you because they see the errors of their ways once they're passed over, and will try to make amends for it. Mm-hmm. So don't be surprised if that horrible member of your family becomes a loved one on the other side.
True. Well said.
Yeah. And I agree, because remember, the person, the family member that you definitely do not want to see again here, is different than that person there. So it's it no longer has all the human frailties and ego and greed and all that bad stuff that they exhibited here. So it might be a totally different relationship. You may have hated them here, but you might love them there.
I sure hope so.
Yeah. Well, here's the same question that we get every show, which is, how can I talk to my deceased loved one? So, Melissa,
just talk.
It's all yours.
Just talk. I have talked about this before. I have an area of our house on our desk in our living room, and I have pictures there. One's of my mom. It's a nice size, maybe it's an 8x10, and she's looking straight at the camera. It was during the last months of her life, and her expression is, "What's going on?" And so every day when I see my mom, I give a little nod, greet them. Of course, at night when I walk into our bedroom with a cup of wine, I stop in the living room and give a little toast to my mom. But it's the mom's there, my dad, Tom's parents, our loved ones, and we have photos around the house. But I'm always thinking about them and talking to them and talking about them to other people. And I think that's the best way, because I say this a lot at some of our retreats, that when you say someone's name, I think they lean in to listen. So I think it's important for us to keep sharing stories about our loved ones and keeping their memory alive by those stories. I know we have friends that we met through our Afterlife discussion groups who shared so many stories about their loved ones. I feel like I knew them, and, I never met them in the physical, but I feel like they're almost watching out for me too. So it's really a nice way to spread the love and to keep them alive forever.
Yeah, and it is, as Melissa started off to say, just talk to them. We can't hear them. We can't get messages, like a medium does, but they can hear us just fine. So, use their name, tell them you love them, talk to them, hold up their picture and talk to their picture, that sort of thing, and they will hear. I understand that probably the questioner wants to know how they can have a two-way conversation, and we would all love that. But for us in the physical, it might mean, letting a medium do just that, be a medium in between the two of you and get the message across to you. And then, of course, if you talk to them and that, they will try things. They will try to leave you signs the best way they can. And so when you ask for a sign or talk to your loved ones, just be aware in the next few days or a week, if you see something out of the ordinary, maybe that's them responding to you.
And, I do often ask my mom something I'm trying to remember. And, just within my head, I'm thinking, oh, help me out with this, Mom. And if I give it some time, and I don't mean all day, but just a little bit of time and think, the answer comes to me. So I attribute it to her, whether it's from her or not. Same with my dad. And it's something, and I've expressed this, I believe, to some of our mediums, where it's always sort of in my not in my left ear, but I feel like the response is somewhere on my left side. I can't really explain it. And it's certainly not like the communication we hear from the mediums. And isn't it so validating when another party, an outside source, can give you that information, because it's not in your own head that you're making it up. But for me, I trust, and I try to have faith in that. But I'm sure we'll be answering this question again and again.
Well, I'm sure we will. Let's go to Melanie from Nevada. Hi, Melanie.
Hi. This is a great transition because my daughter died 4 years ago, so I've been on the show with other times, but I've worked through a lot and worked on the communication aspect with her soul energy. So I was turned on to the telepathy tapes, and I can't remember, it might have been on Joe's show, they briefly mentioned it, and I think you all are aware of them, but if not in brief, I'm only on episode 9 of season 1, but what this is a documentary maker has studied and researched nonverbal autistic individuals and has demonstrated clearly that there is telepathy going on between the autistic person and people in their lives that matter and mean something. So these individuals don't speak. A number of them can type, so they'll type out messages very slowly. But when you listen to the series, what you start seeing is that when people are open and calm and close to the person, they mentally communicate back and forth. So obviously, this all ties very nicely into what Melissa was just saying about communicating with her mother, but how I communicate with my daughter, this validates it. But I guess what I'm bringing up and am curious to hear your perspectives on is that as I listen and think about this and all the nonverbal autistic individuals' experiences with what I call soul world, you can call it whatever you want, it dramatically parallels what we talk about, and Bob, what you've gotten up and all the research about continuation of energy. However, the individual is still embodied. So as I listen and think about it, I'm like, I love just the reference of we are our soul energy is trapped in our body, and like you said, a very dense existence. And then our loved ones who cross are free of the body, and they're, again, based on soul development, able to do a number of different things. But it almost feels like these nonverbal autistic individuals, all of whom can communicate through telepathy with each other, and again, with the people they love, it's almost like they're more in soul world than they are in their bodies. So that was just one observation that I had, and I was just curious as to your thoughts on all of that.
Well, I think the work with autistic children is extremely important. So Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, who's a medical doctor, was the impetus, behind all of this research and the telepathy tapes. And her, she's on our board, and she's just it's just amazing. You've seen some of the stuff already. And it's important because it shows that in many cases when the mind has when the brain, the physical brain, has some restrictions or is hampered in some way, as you alluded to, it seems as if it's a catalyst for senses beyond our known senses. So it jumpstarts their ability to get information from otherworldly sources. And that's really important because it does tie in with the work that we do and communicating with our loved ones, because it just shows that even with a mind that's a brain that's compromised, the signal is still picked up. So when we physically pass and we don't have a brain, we still have a mind that still is capable of telepathy. So, I mean, you're right to know that this is really, really important. I was interviewed on the telepathy tapes about a month or two ago. I think it aired already. I don't know. I don't listen to it, but they not only are they going after people that are experts in autism, but in mediumship and everything else that has to do with consciousness and the mind. So I'm glad you're watching it and listening to it, and I think you'll learn a lot. I mean, you just mentioned to me the other day, Melissa, that you started listening to the telepathy tapes, right?
Yeah, we had a family member who was reached out to after his story was shared in Laura Lynn Jackson's first book. Yeah. So the program reached out to him, and he was so excited to be able to share his story of the loss of his wife, Kathy, which, that gentleman, it's our daughter's father-in-law. He had no belief whatsoever. And when his wife's cancer returned and then took her life. And so, I mean, for me as a believer, it's like, I apologize if this sounds cruel, but I don't mean it this way. It just puzzles me that he almost lost her earlier than she actually passed. And he never contemplated anything beyond this world at all, ever. And then when, she actually did pass, he was completely lost. But because our son-in-law was able to say, hey, my in-laws, they believe in this stuff. And we, of course, had our relationship with Forever Family going way back. And it gave him, this dear man, so much comfort and relief and belief that now his life has completely changed. I mean, he, of course, still misses his wife dearly, but he knows he'll see her again. And he's living his life in a full manner, just knowing Kathy's waiting for him.
Yeah, it's a great story.
Yeah, and I'd like to talk about the telepathy part. What we have heard from people who have the near-death experiences, when they get on the other side before they're brought back again, invariably every single one of them says that nobody's talking to him, that he'll meet people on the other side and it's all telepathy, it's all nonverbal. That is the way. So, as you say, with a child or a person with autism who is nonverbal, they're already one step ahead of all of us. It's our verbal brain, as Bob was saying before, that is inhibiting us from the real communication, because it's foreign to us to think that somebody can just think and you can understand what they're thinking about. But that it's a very real phenomena, and it happens a lot. And if we were not socially trained to think it's doesn't exist, we put up that block, and we block that from happening. So the more we can become aware of the big picture, the more that kind of communication can be possible.
Well, I guess that's exactly my point. Is it isn't. I think it's a choice. We're choosing not to. I mean, we can see it between two people who are in body. But how many of us do loving kindness meditations, right? You walk by somebody and you say, I wish you happiness, free from suffering, all of that. It's a thought that goes out to them. And when you go by somebody and they react to you and you haven't said a word to them, but they give a positive nonverbal reaction, it's the same thing. And just like Melissa was saying, I was telling my cousin who is on the show often, and listens as well. I said, with my daughter, it's like, I know we're doing it. And yes, I can't explain it clearly, where it is or how it quote sounds, but I know. And I guess just the reporting and the information that is presented from two people embodied doing it, and not both of them are nonverbal autistic, it just makes me more confident that if I choose to not believe but know it, then boom, there we are, right? We just developed that skill. And I think for all of us who are grieving, it's important to accept. That's, I guess, my point. And having the data and the research available to see that it is happening is just powerful. And with that, I'll quit talking, but thank you for letting me be on.
Thank you. Thanks.
I love it. Thank you so much, Melanie.
Thanks, Melanie.
And it makes you think, you get a thought in your head and you immediately think it's your own thought. And if it's a communication from somebody else coming into your head, what will a doctor say to you? Well, your mind's playing tricks on you. It's dismissed. It's so quickly and easily dismissed. And we have to get over that. As you say, we have to make the choice that we are going to communicate.
Yeah. Good one.
Okay. Let's see what we have here. Lorna writes, and I have 3 sons who died in their 40s. Total with that. Should I try to contact them, or is it best to let them go on their journeys? It's a common thought among the bereaved that by us trying to contact them and keep them close to us, that somehow we're inhibiting their growth. And the evidence seems to suggest that that's just simply not true. You're never inhibiting them. You're never stopping them from advancing or gaining more knowledge or exploring. And the bottom line is they would love to communicate with you, if for nothing else, just to let you know that they still exist.
Yeah.
And that they love you. So I would try to get that out of your head that, you're never inhibiting them.
Yes. And actually, yes. In fact, we've often said, and I know it's true, that the energy, the fuel that fuels the universe is love. And so if you continue to send the love to your sons, you are giving them fuel. You're giving them the energy that they need to survive and to thrive. And so, yeah, by all means, and like Melissa said, even if you can't hear the response, talk to them. Tell them you love them every single day.
And, we often hear people say, oh, I don't want to, keep bothering them. They're busy doing things. But you have that tentacle story that I never can quite grasp, where an individual isn't just one individual. Yeah. There are many, many, many parts.
Yeah, what Melissa's referring to, there's a series of books and tapes that were written by a couple that were channeling a spirit by the name of Seth, and the books are called Seth Speaks. And he addresses quite a lot of what it's like in the afterlife and that sort of thing. And one of the things he mentions is that we think of ourselves as this body that we're walking around in, but no, we are our soul. Our soul is what's eternal. And from the soul, we'll come to the earth and live in a body for 100 years. But that's not our entire soul. That's just, as Seth describes it, he says it's like an octopus. You've got the head of the octopus, and then you've got these tentacles reaching out. On an octopus, there's 8. On a soul, there can be 8 million. And each one at the end of those tentacles is you. And it's in a different place. There's the you that's sitting here now and talking through the internet, but there's also the you that lived in 1700. There's the you that was a little child in kindergarten. And all of those are accessible to the soul. And it's a difficult concept. And even what I thought was funny when I was reading the book is at one point Seth says, I could describe to you exactly how this works, but your human mind couldn't possibly grasp it. So there's a lot more to be learned when we get out of this this human contraption we're dealing with.
Let's see. We have. Does it matter how long someone has been on the other side before they come through? It kind of ties in with what we've been talking about. I mean, there are cases of people that come through 100 years or more after their physical death. But it's also true that they come through less and less as time as we know it, goes on. And that may be for a myriad of reasons, some of which we discussed, and moving to higher frequencies and other things to do. So, but it's true that the signs and communications are more prevalent closer to somebody's physical death than later, but it doesn't preclude them from coming through after a great amount of time has passed.
That's true. In fact, we've heard stories where someone talks to somebody on the phone. Well, actually, they don't talk to the we've heard stories. Actually, Bob has one where the guy's in his office and he gets a phone call and it's your dad calling. And then he finds out his dad has passed. And so he's getting a communication as the person is crossing over. So it can be that soon. And and as Bob says, it can be 100 years down the line. The only trouble with 100 years down the line, if they're coming through, who they're coming through to, nobody who knew them. So how can they even prove that they're coming through? And yet, that in those soul groups we talked about, like scientists, they might come in and try to help scientists here develop things. I mean, Einstein relied heavily on the spirit world for a lot of his discoveries. And so the timing isn't the matter. And as Bob said, a lot of the times the signs and communications will happen very soon after they've passed. And that is entirely because they want you to know that they're still with you and they're doing fine, and don't worry about them. Enjoy the rest of your life. We'll be together. So they try to get that message to you right away because they see that you're being debilitated by grief, and that's the last thing they want for you.
Yeah. We had a question that simply says, "Where is the spirit world?" I smile because when people talk to their loved ones, what do? They look up in the sky, so it's the spirit world, is like straight up in the clouds, but we know that that's not where the, spirit world is. It's not in the clouds, it's another dimension. So where is it? It could be this other plane of existence, this other dimension could be right next to you, 3 inches from your face, but it's still another dimension. So I don't think that it's a particular place like our geography. It's in Europe, or it's everywhere, right?
Yeah, I think when people say, "Well, where is it?" you really should say, "How is it?" Because it's not a different place, it's a different vibration. And so it's the same place. If you go to a medium or you're in a group setting, a medium will come and I see a man in a uniform standing right behind you. So yeah, they're around you. It's the energy around you that they occupy.
Right.
And create that image so that you'll recognize them.
Yeah, then they it's not just like it's not easy for us to raise our vibrations to be able to communicate with them. It's not really that easy for them too to lower their vibration so that they can communicate with us. So it's a two-way street, and thankfully we have mediums who can bridge the gap for us.
But I would like to bring up an interesting topic that does come up often, because when we say where are they, we often point up. I believe it's a Facebook group I'm a part of. It's Believing in the Afterlife, Proof of an Afterlife, I think might be the title of it. And I see some of the comments or questions from time to time. And there was a long string of comments regarding someone who was soon to pass and then did pass, drawing a picture of a finger pointing upward. It's kind of like if anyone is viewing this, they can see my finger. And people joined in the conversation saying, my loved one drew something like that too. But it went on to have people share stories who were hospice workers. And the hospice workers said, time and time again, we see those who are about to pass looking up, raising their hands up. I was able to even chime in with a story that I may have shared before, where a friend of mine told me that her mother was in hospice, and soon before she passed, she laid back in bed and she was just raising her hands up and just saying, it's so beautiful. It's just so beautiful. And my friend thought to say, oh, Mama, do you see Grammy and Pop up there? She goes, oh, honey, they're all there. And then the woman passed. And my story was so similar, word for word almost, to the stories hospice workers were sharing. So that above thing might have just something to do with the immediate passing. Those who have been fortunate enough to sit with their loved ones, some have said they sort of felt like a whoosh and they were out of the body. So maybe the initial whoosh, or when the spirit can leave this heavy overcoat of physical body, it's probably onward and upward and then everywhere.
It's also a communication thing. When a spirit comes through a medium, that they will present themselves in a way that you will recognize their personality and that sort of thing. So it's a common part of the vernacular that you look up. So a spirit wants to welcome the people who are going to pass. They're going to communicate them in the way that they know what they're talking about, understand, so that they will be up and they will, look up, there we are. It's not where they necessarily reside, but it's where you will understand that's where they are.
Yeah. And from a practical point of view, when people pass, sometimes witnesses report seeing the soul, what they term as the soul, leaving the body. And of course, the patient is lying down. So, you see the soul rising, because, so that may be part of it as well. This is a question. When a loved one passes, is it natural to wonder what happens to them? All I could say is, shit, yeah, I think it would be. I mean, it would be abnormal to not wonder where they are, right? I mean, that's what everybody wants to know. Where are they? And are they okay? So,
well, did you read that, Bob, or did you say it as being? Is it normal to wonder?
Yeah, she said when a loved one passes, is it natural to wonder what happens to them? And, of course it's natural. Why wouldn't we, I mean, of course, if you don't believe in life after death, it's a moot point. But
that's where I was going.
Yeah, I mean, if you're open to it, not necessarily a believer, yeah, you're going to wonder about that, right? I mean, did you wonder when the first time that a loved one passed? I mean,
Well, you certainly wonder. Even if you're a non-believer, you wonder, well, is that it for them?
Yeah.
And then you say, well, maybe it, and that's when the maybes come in. Well, maybe there is more, but yeah, it's very natural to wonder.
Right. Let's see, what do we have here? I often encounter friends, relatives, and strangers who vehemently deny the existence of life after death. How should I handle these people? Well, you don't have to handle them. I mean, everybody's entitled to their belief, but I mean, I was just having this conversation with somebody, and I said, if somebody, you could tell in their voice, if somebody, they get angry. There's no such thing, the suggestion is, usually it's probably because of their own fears or meanness, or I just don't want to accept it. And
or
those people
be accountable for anything that they did.
Yeah, so I don't bother. I just change the subject or walk away. But then there were people that you could tell that there's a little bit of questioning in their voice, like that maybe they're open to it, and then I might engage them in a confronting way, just mentioning some of the things that we talk about to see what, they felt. And sometimes that leads to other things. And then they start telling you stories, and before you know it, it's like you're kind of amazed. But listen, I'm sure you do every day. I certainly do. Always encounter people that, even when you're talking about this stuff and knowing what you do, they just look at you like you have two heads, right?
Yeah, I had a friend on Facebook who, I mentioned something about spiritual, and he immediately fired off to me. He goes, "Well, I don't believe any of that. I don't think that's true." And my response is, "Well, you're in for a big surprise." And, he accepted that. He said, "Well, let's hope so. We'll find out."
Right. And come say hello.
We'll have this conversation at another time in the future.
Yeah. Let's see what we have here. Many near-death experiences tell us that when they were resuscitated and had to come back, they were angry because they wanted to stay where they were. So the question is, why would they later decide to reincarnate? So, so they had an NDE. They were in this beautiful place. They were without pain. Maybe they were told that they had to come back. They came back. They were pissed. Years go by, and eventually, like all of us, they do physically die, and they might choose to reincarnate. So if you've seen that place and you wanted to stay there, I guess the question is, why would you come back if you've already seen that place?
I don't think it's a place that you're going. I mean, it's going to be a different experience, I think.
Well, and plus you're, again, we're all talking about the growth and the learning experience. And if you get there and a part of your growth can be enhanced by revisiting the physical, once you realize the eternal nature of life and the very brief physical existence, you figure, well, I could do that.
Yeah.
So, if you go on a ride and it scares, in an amusement park, a roller coaster, and it just scares the bejesus out of you, and you get off, you go, whoa, no, not for me. And then a week later, you find you're back in the amusement park. Oh, yeah, maybe I'll do that again. It's the same sort of thing that you want the rush of the experience, and you forget about all the little pain in the neck stuff that came with it. I think is part of that.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So some of these questions will probably entail more time than what we have, but if the theory of parallel lives in different dimensions is true, does free will suggest that there are completely different versions of ourselves elsewhere? I would imagine so, right? I mean, so if you exist, Melissa, in, let's say, 10 other dimensions, so there's a Melissa, and I mean, the Melissa in another dimension might not bear any resemblance to you, right? I mean, because different free will decisions that you made and others around you made might have changed things.
Right. But there is the common thread through all of this. So no matter how many parallel lives you have, you only have one soul. So it's your one soul that is going through these lives. If you say to yourself, well, put it in this term. What was I like? I was at 5 years old at one point, and I was 50 years at another point. I was two different people, my 5-year-old and my 50-year-old. So it's the same question. Are they different? Yeah, they're different, but they have the same soul. And in a lot of ways, I'm older than 50, and I still feel a lot like I felt when I was 5. So, there's a lot of similarities, but yeah, there can be a lot of differences as well.
Yeah. I think we have time for another one.
Leave that to you guys.
Is there such a thing as coincidence?
That's a...
Well, my personal opinion is that that there are coincidences. Even though a lot of people in the spiritual community say that everything happens for a reason and there are no coincidences, but I think it's like everything else. There are signs that are incredible, but not everything is a sign. There are synchronicities that boggle the mind, but and those are hard to explain, because the universe is coming together to form, meaning. And then sometimes people just happen to bump into each other, but that doesn't take away from, these true, unbelievable signs and synchronicities that happen to us, all the time. So
I know. I think it's not similar to, but I can process the understanding of it a little bit better if I think about some of the dreams I have, where sometimes a dream of someone can be a dream visit. Other times our dreams can just be a jumble of things that are maybe replaying from our day, but putting it into something we can understand. So it's
a good similarity. It's a good analogy there. I mean, it's the same principle, right?
Yeah, I think so.
But it all comes back to what one of our callers said before, that these things are attached to a knowing, So if you have a dream visitation, that it was real, and there's no question in your mind. And some synchronicity might happen where you get goosebumps and you just know that might have been your loved one or the universe that put that together, So.
And I'll just say in a simple sentence that we were sharing an experience, Tom and I, with someone the other day, and she was one of our mediums who we happened to see, and she said, "Oh, I'm getting goosebumps." The same time, I was getting goosebumps, and you were getting goosebumps
too.
And it was like that's a knowing. That's it.
And you know what? I didn't even know what was going on, and I was in another state, and I was getting goosebumps. So we're all connected.
Flash, come on.
Okay, well, now to our global peace prayer. Let us, as one consciousness, give our energy of loving thought by praying like this: to love one another, to treat others as we would like to be treated, to forgive others and return love for hate, kindness for anger, and to spread this feeling to everyone, to our fellow man, as well as the earth and its environment.
And I'd like to say our loved ones are only a heartbeat away.
And science is going to accept it.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Bob.
Good night, Bob.